let's jump into a demo. So a lot of what we've talked about, like we really have talked about a range of technologies and projects. And really the topics and the principles we've talked about, you can plug in whatever tech stack that you have in your infrastructure and systems. We're going to jump into kind of an example within this DevOps architecture. I'm going to focus on a specific project. I'm going to focus in the CD space using Octopus Deploy. But again, a lot of the principles that I'll show are applicable to other tools that you can take away and apply now. But we want to see how we can modernize and deploy the new version of a legacy line of business application. While trying to modernize it. And so we have kind of the old and new happening concurrently and how we can manage that. So I'm going to just jump out of here and I'm going to jump over to Octopus Deploy. So what I have set up here, this is a demo project. And so as part of a DevOps architecture, I have a lot of the elements that we've talked about. But thinking about how can we get started with application modernization and supporting that old and new and the transition. So we're looking at the Octopus Deploy dashboard here. And Octopus, if you haven't seen it before, it's focused on continuous delivery, being able to ship your applications through your environments. In this case, I've got the three categories. The names are a little bit different from the example. I have development, which is again that environment where it could be automated. We can run tests. Test environment could be test staging or UAT, where people are actually looking at things, and then production, which is our live system. But down the left-hand side here, I have a collection of applications, and then along the top, I can see again those environments. So I know what version of every application has been deployed where. So I just have an understanding. I've got that visibility into what I'm doing. If I jump into any of these deployments, I can see who deployed what, when, and what actually changed. But today we're going to dig into or dive into an order entry system. And so this is a typical line of business application where it's capturing orders and starting an order fulfillment process. So if I jump into this, this is where things get interesting. And so this is my project dashboard. And so this project has a matching Git repository. I'm using GitHub for my source control. I have GitHub Actions for my build. It's one of the more popular CI servers or CI processes nowadays. And then I'm pushing to Octopus for my deployment, and I'm deploying to Azure. But what we see here, this is a version controlled project. So I'm looking at the configure, I'll be looking at my deployments and the configuration of my CD process. And so we're focused on the strategies to be able to modernize this application as we move forward. Now, this project dashboard, I can see a series of releases down the left-hand side. And again, I can still see my environments, dev, test, and production here. But this is a version controlled project. And what I can see immediately is that I've got a mix of branches here. And so the very last one shows what's running in production. I have 2.1.088. And that's on the main branch. That would be kind of version 2. That's the production current version of the system. And then at the very top here, I've got a couple new releases that were created, again, triggered by my CI process, runs through all the CI elements, running unit tests, etc. But I'm modernizing, I'm testing, or I'm working out the kinks as the team is building version 3 of the application. And so in this case, we'll see the deployment process, but version 2 is like a traditional desktop app that's going to desktops, whereas version 3 has a modernized front end, containerized front end, but it's still integrating with the legacy services because we need to innovate in that, enable our customers to add their orders more easily. But while this is happening, we've had a bug report come through. So you can see I've got a branch here, fix SQL update. So there was a backend bug. And so in this case, we validated in a dev environment. We tested in a test environment, and that was deemed quality. So we merged the PR, and then we're back to main. So version 2.1.0.90 is the latest version of our legacy application. So while we're modernizing, we can still deploy the older version. So to see how everything works, I'm just going to jump into deploy here, and we're going to kick off with a production release. So this is a deployment summary screen. I just get to select my environment. I could schedule this if I wanted or customize things. But today I'm just going to kick things off, and we're going to go straight to production. So I've already gone through my environments, though, I will point out. And the other thing that I'll mention is that I'm running as an administrator. So I have full permission here, whereas typically the production deployments are limited to only those who should be, depending on your organization. So the first thing that we have is a production approval. And I'm a member of the group who can approve. So normally this would go through a more thorough process, but I'm going to say all tasks complete in change request approved. So I'm just going to proceed with this deployment, and it will now move forward. And so this is a traditional or almost legacy deployment. We're going to Windows servers and desktops. And so this is a summary where it's going to show me what's happening, but I also have detailed task logs that tell me everything that happens, and that's often important if there's ever a failure. So while this is deploying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my deployment process. And again, I'll go through this quickly, but this is my version 2, my main legacy deployment process. And so what you can see is I have my approval, I have a database update. This is a step that's deploying our older, like our legacy order service, a backend web service that processes orders, to web servers, one or more. And then we have a desktop application that is going out to multiple desktops for our customers. But what I have is I have the other branch, so I can switch to that. And what we can now see is that I've got similar steps. I still have my approval, my database update, but I've renamed this. That's our legacy order application. And I'm still deploying the desktop application. That's just to keep it around while we're moving forward. But I've added a Kubernetes deployment where we're rebuilding our front end. And so when we're ready, probably this would be an initial iteration, a modernizing front end, and then I'm able to deploy to the older system and also start moving forward with the new version of the application. And so if you've never seen Octopus, all of these steps are added. It could be just scripts, standard scripts, through to more intelligent steps, like deploying to IIS or deploying a bicep template. We have a range of steps that are all provided out of the box. Kubernetes as well. We have a range of deployments options with Customize, Helm, etc. But if we take a look at how you configure one of these steps, you specify where a step is run. And this is an example of just creating a load balancer, a little snippet of YAML with support to update configuration settings that can be deployed through environments. And so what I'm doing here is I'm leveraging config as code with Octopus, and I have a matching CI build with GitHub Actions to enable me to iterate on my deployment process and application while maintaining the existing system. And so this process is one of the key parts of the release system. And the other one is capturing configuration settings that vary as you move through environments. One of the keys that Jeffrey said is we build once, you get those binaries created once, and then you promote that single artifact through your environments, dev, test, production, or dev staging, etc. And so here what I have captured is a range of configuration settings. One of the most common is just database connection strings. So as you move through environments, we capture and update your database connection string as you move through. But if we jump back to our deployment summary, what we can see, our last production deployment was successful, and that release has successfully moved from our CI process through to our environments, dev, in this case, dev, test, and production. And we've moved that release successfully to production. And moving forward now, if once our more modern front end is ready to be promoted, it could be merged to main and again, move through that same environment progression. And so with that, I'm just going to switch back to our slide deck. So we're close to time. I'll raise this